All righty. Okay, so we're on. Hi, everybody. I am Dinora Chacon with Donofrio Associates, and I am out of the Arlington office. And I have with me today Lenny Pinnix with
Hey,
Donofrio
everybody.
Home Associates. So, Lenny, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So we were just having a side conversation before we jumped on about how you just got your master license, right?
Certificate.
Certificate. Okay. So why don't you tell us and those who are watching a little bit about your background?
Sure.
Donofrio Associates, and you're the director of operations now, right?
Director of inspections, yes.
Excuse me, inspections, yes.
Yeah, so I oversee all the inspectors at Donofrio. My background, I come out of construction, so from pretty much the time I was, 2, I lived under a drafting board. And my mom's an architect, my dad was the business side of things, and they came out of Atlanta, moved up to Virginia, and then, got into the government contracting, commercial and residential space. So I've been in that pretty much my whole life. So I know a lot about how things work in that aspect. And then in terms of Donofrio, if anyone doesn't know, just to give a little bit of background, the company was founded and started in 2001 by Ed Donofrio, who is a veteran. He is a graduate of the Naval Academy. He is also our structural specialist. And actually, if people don't know this, he's an Olympian. He was in the Olympics for fencing.
I did not know that.
So, and he's got stories for days too, of course, but company started in 2001. Then at some point, I'm not sure exactly when, he brought on his sons as well, Jason and Joseph. And now Joseph is sort of overseeing the day-to-day business side of things. And Jason's still out in the field as well. He's our other master inspector.
Yeah. I think when I went full-time in real estate back in 2015, one of my first inspections was with Joey.
Yeah.
Joseph. I shouldn't call him Joey anymore.
Call him Joey. We still call him Joey.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
And I've had the pleasure also of working with Ed, and he's been a great resource when it's come to structural issues.
Oh, absolutely. He's a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. So that has been great. How many inspectors do you guys have now? Because you have grown over the years since I've
met. So right now we have 12.
Okay.
12, and then I think total company is probably somewhere around maybe 20 to 25 people, office inspectors, owners, etc.
And you guys service pretty much everywhere, Maryland, DC, Virginia, of course.
So we are Maryland, DC, Virginia, and right now it's a 50 to 60 mile radius of Ashburn.
Okay, very good. So the purpose of having this conversation today is to kind of talk about like home inspection 101.
Sure.
And I want to also talk about pre-listing inspections for those sellers out there who are thinking, why should I do that? And I can also talk about the benefit of doing that from my perspective, right, as a realtor.
Of course.
And COVID-19, we'll leave that subject last to see how, you guys are doing things differently, of course. So let's start, with the basic questions, because, my colleague Lena and I do this all the time. How much is a home inspection, Dinora? How much is that going to cost me? Is that, Lenny?
That's everybody's, I think, basic question. Now for me, I have some figures here. Our office is going to know better than I would. It's sort of not my wheelhouse, but I do have some averages, of course, of kind of how it works. So for us, I guess there's a lot of factors that are dependent on of cost. So first of all, I guess the way this works is square footage is a factor. Mm-hmm. The number of systems in the house is a factor. The age of the home is going to be a factor in terms of cost. Those are kind of the main ones. And additionally, with us, we offer a different sort of add-on type of inspections or services. So that's, of course, going to affect it as well. But I mean, our average probably would be right around $650 for your standard single-family home. Of course, a condo is going to be much, much less than that. I think they start around $515, maybe somewhere around. Maybe
I was going to say, 500s. Yeah, that's what you guys.
So that's about average,
Right.
And again, it varies on a lot of different things. So I would say, most of the time it's running right around $650, I think, based on services and things like that we offer as well.
Okay, that's good, because I usually say somewhere between just the 550 to 600, whatever that might be.
I mean, it's a good range to be in for sure.
So when you guys get the request, I guess there's someone in the office that pulls up the property address, and then based on the age, and that's how you guys obviously come up.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, an agent knows everything about the property ahead of time, and of course they're running through a certain set of questions that they're asking in regards to it. Sometimes they may pull it up and look at it that way as well. And then based upon all of that and all the information is sort of how they determine what the price is going to be.
Right. The other question too that I think is most asked is, well, how long does it take? And I always say, well, it all depends.
That's a loaded question. Come on. No, it depends. So it really does. You know, average, I would say, let's say we're looking at a standard condo. You're probably looking at maybe 1.5, 2 hours, somewhere around in there, depending. Townhouses, maybe 2.5 to 3 hours, and then your single family homes, you know, 3 to 4 probably. Now, the reason I say it depends is because it's dependent upon a sort of what we find. Obviously, in older homes, a lot of times, you know, we find more things, and that's going to, of course, extend, you know, the time frame that we're looking at there. And then the other thing that it's dependent upon is you know, what type of questions does a client have? You know, we're there in a teaching aspect for the client as well. So we want to teach them about the home and try and answer as many questions as we can that they might have that we're able to. So that kind of comes into play a little bit too. Those type of things can certainly affect the time frame that we're there, but those are sort of average figures, you know, anywhere between 1 to 2 hours for a condo, 2.5 to 3 for a townhouse. Single family, probably 3 to 4 is about average. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it takes a lot longer. I've definitely been on an inspection for 8, 9 hours before.
Wow. I had you guys help me out with a property in Woodbridge. It was newer construction, if I remember correctly, but it was a big house. I think it was close to like 4,500 square feet.
Sure.
And what you guys did that time was you guys sent 2 home inspectors. And one of them was, you know, checking on the back, they're doing their stuff. And then the other one was talking to my clients and explaining how things work, just what you just said. Yeah,
we tend to do that on larger properties for sure. And again, that's sort of dependent upon what services are ordered. You know, let's say for a good example, would be like if we're doing something out in the country that has outbuildings and a barn and a house and et cetera, we're definitely going to send more than one inspector typically. I think there's some sort of square footage sort of threshold there in terms of sending more than one inspector. I know sometimes they'll do it based on a request, of course, as well. But yeah, a lot of times we do that on the larger properties, and I think it definitely helps.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. So, what is your approach when doing a home inspection? What is the expectation as soon as you walk in there and meet the client? What are you going to look at? How do you talk to them? What should they expect to be done at that moment?
In terms of how I approach a home inspection, I like to sneak up on them. No, but seriously,
I bet they appreciate that.
Right. No, we, you know, the way that we do home inspections, it's pretty set in stone. We follow a particular pattern, and we're looking at specific things. So, I guess the best way to describe it is we sort of talk to the clients, typically either in the driveway or in the kitchen, one or the other. We're letting them know exactly what we're doing and what steps we're going to take. We break the home inspection into 3 phases. And it starts with the outside of the house, where we're looking sort of at a top-down approach, looking at, you know, roofing shingles first and sort of working our way down the house, looking at everything down to the foundation on the exterior, and then going over any sort of external systems the house may have and ages and maintenance requirements. So that's really phase 1. Phase 2 is probably one of the most important ones, and that's the major systems in the home. So we're taking a look at the HVAC system, the water heater, main water lines, hose bib shutoffs, electrical panel, and sort of working through those systems with the client. And those are really the 2 most important sections, I think, if you have someone that's there, and we would like them to follow us on those sections. I mean, obviously with COVID, it's a little different right now, but we'll get into that later. And then the 3rd phase, we're starting from the lowest level and sort of working our way up through the house, and we're testing, you know, functionality, doors, windows, looking at walls and ceilings and floors, and sort of working our way up into the attic, which is the last thing that we do. And there we're looking at the structure of the attic and the level of insulation and looking for critters and that type of thing.
Okay, so then this leads me to the next thought. I agree with you that phase 2 is probably the most important for them, because when they say, well, what should I be looking for? What should I be focused on? Is the systems, right? And you get this question all the time. Well, the water heater or the HVAC is X long. What is usually the life expectancy? And I know it's hard for you to like say, right? Because it all depends.
It does. It depends. So there's definitely some averages there,
Right.
and I will preface those averages by saying it's dependent upon how that system is taken care of, how it's maintained. So obviously, if it's a not very well maintained system, it's going to not extend the lifespan of it. It's going to be a lesser lifespan versus someone who's very meticulous about taking care of it, which is going to extend that lifespan. So we like to work off of averages, and I guess I can run you through actually quite a few of them, really. So in our area with, let's say, something like HVAC, I guess I should say, first of all, what is HVAC? That consists of either, it consists of your interior heating system, which could be a furnace, it can be a air handler, or what we would call it. Well, it's an air handler, but a lot of people say heat pump. Heat pump's the outside portion. So you have a condensing unit on the outside, you have your interior portion of the system. And so for HVAC in our area, the average lifespan is about 12 to 15 years. And obviously they can last longer than that. We've probably all seen one that's, 30 or 40 years old and still working fine. But that's average. Water heaters, you're looking at average about 10 to 12. Sump pumps are 8 to 10. Roof. So this is this is a very dependent thing. It depends on what type of shingle it is. And so each shingle is going to have an average as well. So let's say it's, what we would call it, your standard asphalt shingle, which looks like flat bricks laid across the house. That's a 3-tab shingle. The average lifespan on that's about 15 to 20 years. 20 to 25 on an architectural grade shingle, which is the one that has sort of a stacked look to it. You have one of the newer ones is the what I like to call fake slate. So it's actually made of tires. And that's about a 15 to 20 year lifespan. Rubber roofing, generally about 10 to 20. Slate, you're looking at a very long average lifespan of about 50 to 100 years there. Metal roofing is between about 40 and 80, and then fiber cement's about 20 to 25. So that's roofing wise, what we'd be looking at there.
Okay. No, those are great life expectancy averages.
And of course, one of the biggest components that plays into that life expectancy is weather.
True. Absolutely.
It's a huge factor in how long that shingle is going to last, for sure. And obviously, as we all know, we sometimes get hail in our area, we get rain, so it's all dependent upon that and sun and exposure and things like that. Right.
Okay. Very good. So you guys are done with the inspection. I know that we sit down, or we stand, gather. Well, we used to gather around, and you would go over the report, right, on the tablet.
Absolutely.
And, you email it, and we get it right away.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any guarantees that you guys have in case you missed anything? Because things happen sometimes, right?
So
that you can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer a 90-day limited warranty, and it is a limited, and I say limited, and I'm saying that like limited. It covers certain systems, right? So if we do miss something, of course, that's going to be something that is part of that. And it covers things like plumbing systems. It can cover HVAC or appliances, I guess, is what that would fall under. What else? Electrical. I think there is something for sewer, but that's rarely used because we don't really inspect sewer lines, so to speak. But things like that are certainly covered. And of course, we're here to help. So if someone's contacting us, if it's something that's warranted, we're gonna try and go the extra mile as much as we can for them.
Okay.
But all that information as well, if anyone's curious, is actually in you have a inspection contract that you sign, and then also that warranty information is in some of those scheduling emails that come out to everybody as you're booking the inspection.
Okay, good to know.
Mm-hmm.
You guys do mold inspections as well? Or
yeah.
What's the proper term?
We call them air quality.
That's what it is.
Mold screening.
That's right.
Mold's a bad word in the industry, so.
True. What is the turnaround usually on those?
honestly, it depends on the lab. So generally speaking, the way that those work, and I guess the best way that I can describe it is, if we can get it to a FedEx before 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's going to go to the lab that day. If not, you know, obviously the next morning, or they don't really do weekends so much, like on Sundays. So a lot of times, if it's going to encompass going over the weekend, it'll usually be the following week that you get the results. I like to say 3 to 5 days is a good kind of average, and it really does depend on how busy the lab is. A lot of times we get them back fairly quickly though.
Do you know if there is a way to expedite it? I'm just thinking, you know, the way that the market is moving so quickly, sometimes we don't even have 3 to 5 days. Is there a way to expedite it to get those results?
Very good question. A lot of people do ask that. I'd have to check with the lab to see if there's a way to expedite it, but that is a good question. I'm sure they're very well maybe.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about the infrared, the little
infrared thermal cameras?
Yes, will you guys go and, like, you know, make sure that there's no water stains? Those are really,
oh yeah.
How do those work?
Yeah, they're amazing. So what they do is they're looking for temperature differences. So let's say I were to shine it at a window, for instance, it's going to determine based on that window and the temperature outside, sort of if you're looking at the frame of it, if there's any air movement coming back in. And it's looking at hot and cold differences. So it enables us to see a lot of different things. Potential for possible what we would call microbial growth, or the mold word, I guess, behind walls, water intrusion, that type of thing, air intrusion into the house through gaps in windows and doors is really, we use them mainly for moisture more than anything else, especially in areas, you know, of drywall that we can't see behind. So I guess that brings up another good point, right? We can inspect what we see, but we can't inspect what we can't see or isn't accessible to us. So, you know, a lot of people are like, well, why didn't they see the leak in the wall behind the drywall and the plumbing fixture, you know, in the framing? We can't.
Exactly. And we can't go in there and start poking holes in the drywall because the seller is not going to like that.
Exactly. And, you know, if it's something that's readily accessible, absolutely we can look at it. You know, if it's not readily accessible, it's sort of off limits.
Right. Okay. So with, in regards to changes in temperature, brings me to this question that I just thought of. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when it's too cold outside and we cannot run the AC, and somebody, but why? You know, spring comes around, I won't be able to know if it works.
I actually dealt with this just the other day. Okay.
Let's talk about that.
So, the best way to describe this, and I'll go 2 different routes, right? So I'll go the layman's route, and I'm going to go the technical route as well. So basically, if the temperature is too cold, what it can cause is if we're testing that system in a temperature that's below 55 or 60, depending upon the temperature the night before, what'll happen is it'll freeze the coil in the outside unit. So it's going to damage the system. And a lot of people always ask, well, is there any way that it can be done? And the simple answer is no. Not even an HVAC technician would do it. Typically, at least in our area, I know for sure. But the technical portion of it is, if the ambient temperature outside is below 55 and it was not freezing the night before, what will happen if we test that AC system? Well, you have refrigerant that runs from the outside unit to the inside unit, and it boils at a certain temperature. It's a negative temperature, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But if you're testing that system and that ambient temperature is below a certain degree, what happens with this refrigerant is it transfers from a liquid state to a gaseous state, and it kind of goes back and forth, and that's how it transfers or takes away heat from the house. And if the temperature is below a certain temperature, it can't do that transfer from a liquid state to a gas state, and that's what causes the coil to freeze, essentially. Same thing goes on the other end in the summertime with an electric heat pump. You can only test them up to a certain temperature before it'll start to damage the system. Generally, that's about 75 degrees, I think, 70 or 75, depends on who you ask.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Of course.
So let's move on and talk about the pre-listing inspection.
Yeah.
I want to know if it is done the same way in the 3 phases like you guys do for buyers, right? And I encourage my clients to do it if they can. Of course, there are clients that take great care of their properties. There are others that do okay. And if they don't want to have any surprises later on once the property is for sale, then it's strongly recommended. Can you do a full-blown inspection? Can we do a walk and talk, which is usually what I've done before? Can you tell us what our options are? So for those sellers thinking,
So I guess for a pre-listing, we're doing a full-blown inspection.
you are.
And the reason behind it is we feel like the report is the greatest source of information to them, because think about it this way, right? If I were to come into your house and start talking to you about your systems, and let's say, you're sort of new at it maybe, or maybe it's your second home, you're going to forget that information like 10 minutes after I tell you. So this gives you the ability to have a photograph and have a comment and have something in relation to this that can be utilized later to either repair those issues in the terms of a pre-listing inspection, but it gives you that documentation, and that's super important.
Right.
So we do the full inspection, and we're giving an inspection report at the end of it. That's really where we're at with the pre-listing portion of it.
Okay.
We have a lot of different inspections that we offer. So on the other end of the coin, let's say, I'm not concerned about anything except for the major things in a house, right? And the major things would be like the roof, the structure, the systems. We have something called a systems and structural inspection, which dives into that. So it's really looking at the major things, right? Your main water line, your water heater, your main electrical panel, the structure of the home, and the structure in the attic. And that's really the gist of it. It's not testing any fixtures. It's not going, room to room, testing every outlet and slamming doors. So that's one that's, we see that come up every so often. People just want the structure and systems portion of it because maybe they're remodeling the house as a whole, and they just want to know the major stuff. So that's a good one to utilize there.
Right.
And then we do lead, radon, lead-based paint. We do pool inspections, spa inspections, well inspections, commercial and residential inspections as well.
That's right. I forgot you guys do commercials as well. Commercial properties. Okay, that's, you said the well as well?
Mm-hmm.
Well as well? Is that right?
Well as well. Yeah, and well is very interesting. It's there's not really a regulation on well, so we had to sort of take a median approach here and kind of go to the middle portion of what we're looking at. So everything we do is visual and non-invasive. So we can look at something that we can see, but we're not allowed to tear the drywall off or remove an electrical panel cover to look beyond that. If it's an accessible furnace door, of course we can remove it. But with the well inspections, it's not like we're taking the cap off and pulling the pump all the way up out of the ground. And we're looking at it, we're doing a few tests in relation to it, and then there's a warranty that's offered through a partner company as well.
With that well test, does that also include, or could you guys do the water potability test?
Not anymore. No, we don't do water potability anymore. We used to. It ended up being a little bit of a hassle, so we stopped doing that, and we're just offering the well only.
Okay, very good. And just want to say this from the agent's perspective when dealing with sellers regarding a pre-listing inspection, is one of those things that once it's in writing and there is something wrong that would affect the property structurally, we would have to fix it or disclose it. So that's something that it's like such a fine line. I had a client who had polybutylene pipes. Mm-hmm. And that is one of those things that I said, if you're not going to repair them, replace them, we're going to have to disclose. So it's one of those things that I want to make sure that the sellers that are out there thinking about potentially doing it, that that once we have that report, and of course I'll sit down with you and we can discuss further, you have to either do it or we have to disclose so that the consumer knows what they're getting themselves into.
Right, absolutely.
The home inspection. All right, so let's move on to the last topic here. COVID-19. How have you guys adjusted your inspections, if at all?
Well, so there's a couple of things that we did. First of all, we are all COVID safety certified. So the trade association we work with came out with a specific class that inspectors can take, and it allows them to go through different safety aspects and things in terms of dealing with the public in a physical manner, in terms of like, if you're standing there in front of me and I'm doing an inspection, we still have the ability to do that. And from what I understand, we're one of the few that throughout this whole thing has had that ability, and that sort of hinges upon this class that all of our inspectors took right away. So we're wearing gloves, wearing masks if it's an inspection where we're there with other folks. We also offer two different other types of inspections, one being a virtual inspection. And I guess the best way to describe that is there's really sort of two options there, right? So number one, we're calling and going over with the client what we're doing at the beginning of the inspection if they're not there, of course. being virtual. And setting up a time at the end of the inspection where we can talk to them and kind of go through the summary. If an agent happens to be there, the other option is, of course, either way, really, using something like Facebook video, or I'm trying to think of another good video service. I don't know necessarily Zoom, but like FaceTime is good. So
Yeah.
in that fund, we can do that as we're sort of going through the inspection as well. Or an agent could certainly, film us as we're doing the inspection also. So that's sort of the virtual option. And then we also have a non-contact option, which literally nobody's there. Somebody gives, an agent would give us a 1-day code to get in. We do the inspection. Again, we're still contacting the clients on the front end, letting them know what we're doing, and then contacting them at the end and sort of going through the report as well. So that's sort of how we've been dealing with it.
What has your experience been personally? I mean, are people holding back and just doing the FaceTime with the agent, or they're still going, obviously,
Me personally, I think I've done maybe one where no one was there, and one doing FaceTime with a client. Other than that, it's literally been people have been there the whole time.
Yeah.
All the way, at least in my personal experience. Now, other inspectors have had a lot of the virtual ones or non-contact ones as well. But me personally, everyone's been there every single time.
And it's obviously up to the buyer's comfort level, right? Of what
buyers and sellers, really, too. Same thing. Sometimes I have been to one where it was we only want 6 people in the house at a time, maximum.
Wow.
I've been to ones where they're only giving you a specific amount of time to go through it, because they want to get back there and sort of clean and wipe everything down and things like that too.
Okay.
So it's definitely been an interesting run with this. I will say, we are still very busy. We did hit a lag for a very short amount of time. And I wouldn't say we're up to full capacity now, but we're certainly very close to it. I think we maybe experienced like a 20% decline.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. I mean, Lynn and I have seen that this has kept, even though we obviously have to deal with different measurements now, it's still going. It did go down a little bit, contract activity and all, but we're still moving. The market.
Yeah, everybody is. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. Do you have anything else to add before I give my 2 cents in regards to home inspections for those buyers who are thinking, well, the inspection is done? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, ask away.
Okay, Lenny, first of all, what's in the cup?
46-year-old aged Maker's Mark and Coke.
Yeah, it is that time.
It is happy hour.
I mean, it's what, 4:30. That's how I roll at the end of the day.
I like it. And secondly, asking for a friend.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you inspect the grading and also like the slope of the backyard? And this really is for a friend. My next door neighbor was very upset at her home inspector because her backyard is very sloped,
Okay.
and they do get water in their basement.
Mm-hmm.
He did bring up the fact that they needed to grade, but they were upset that he didn't walk the perimeter of the yard and really look at the slope. Is that part of your responsibility, or are you really the home?
Obviously, I think if we're seeing a lake in the backyard, we're gonna note it probably. But the real answer to the question is we're responsible for the grading around the foundation of the home, and that goes up to about 6 feet out from the house. So what we're looking for is positive slope away from the house for about the first 6 feet, and that's in order for water to run off. Now, of course, if hey, I'm looking in the backyard and between this house and the neighbor's house, there's a lake that runs under the fence, I'm probably going to say something about it, but in technical responsibility terms, yeah, it's really what's around the house and the foundation that we're looking at.
Okay. I'll tell her to stop being mad at her home inspector then.
Yeah, right. Anything else, Lynn?
No.
You good? So what I wanted to add though before we go our separate ways is, so the buyer is done with the home inspection. So what's next? Especially for first-time home buyers. So it's all about negotiating those items. If the home inspection that we chose allowed to ask for negotiation, ask for either repair or credit. There's also the other type of home inspection where is with the right to void. We can still go do a complete inspection just like Lenny talked about with the pre-faces. And it's for you buyers to determine, okay, the house is good, ready to go. And what Lynn and I are seeing is that in this market that we're seeing, a lot of buyers choose to do the home inspection with the right to void so that their offer is more enticing, so that we have a little bit more leverage versus the other buyer who is actually asking for a full-blown inspection, but is asking the seller for repairs. So it's a conversation after, you know, we received the report from Lenny, that we sit down and we go over and we find the items that are most important to you as a buyer to get either fixed or a credit. And it's totally negotiable. It's up to the seller what they want to do. But I think that pretty much what Lenny said is what you should all expect at a home inspection. Lenny, thank you so much for
my pleasure.
I appreciate it. Lynn, thank you so much. It was good seeing you again.
Nice.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you soon.
All right.
You guys too. Thank you very much.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
Bye.